my name is Emma, and today I'm going to be telling you the story of how I got into reading. This video has been pretty popular on BookTube. I feel like I've just always seen so many of these videos and I've just never had the motivation to do so, but I decided to do it today for you guys. So from what I can remember as a kid, I was just always a reader. I was always in the library with my family. We took classes. My mom brought us there to get books. I have such fond memories of my public library as a kid. I feel like the best clear-cut starting point of like my real reading life started in second grade when I picked up the Bailey School Kids series. This was a fantastic, like 100 and something book series. It's about these 4 kids who keep coming in contact with all of like these mythical creatures and like fantasy figures that are just like the nurses and doctors and teachers of their community, and it was such a great series. If you have a little kid who you're trying to get into reading, I highly recommend those books. But yeah, all throughout childhood I was just always reading new books. I can't even remember the amount of books I read as a kid. I just remember that I was always reading. And then I found Harry Potter. I remember in like 3rd grade, one of my friends was reading it at lunch and I was like, hey, that book looks familiar because my sister has it at home. My sister started reading Harry Potter, but she never finished. First of all, how do you stop Harry Potter in the middle? I think that's the most important question. But secondly, how do you live with me and not read Harry Potter? That's another really good question I have for my sister. But I figured to give him a shot, and oh my god, I had no idea how much my life would change in that moment. Unfortunately, I really can't remember reading the majority of the Harry Potter books for the first time. I don't know why, but all first memories of books 1 through 5 of Harry Potter are completely blocked from my mind. I remember reading Half-Blood Prince because I had just gotten it like as soon as it got released, and I read it in 2 days while I was camping, and it was so fantastic to read that book for the first time. I significantly remember that book, let me tell you. And then the year after, or 2 years after, however long it was, we got Deathly Hallows, and I was lucky enough to go to a midnight release party for it at my local bookstore. Why don't bookstores do that anymore? Like, has anyone gone to a midnight release party for a book in the past like 3 years? I know they had one for City Family Fire in New York, and my mom wouldn't let me go, and I was super pissed about that. But I honestly cannot remember the last time I heard of anyone doing a midnight release, whether the author was there or not. But I do remember I was the 21st person in my town to get a copy of Deathly Hallows. I was supposed to be first, but they moved where the line was supposed to start, and I was at the front of the line. But it was 21st! So that's an accomplishment that I'll never forget. I remember reading like every detail of Deathly Hallows for the first time. I'm so happy that I remember at least reading that book. And so I don't remember exactly when I finished Harry Potter or what year I was in the last book came out, but I remember very soon after that I had discovered Twilight. I remember reading Twilight before I had realized that it was like this big massive thing. I feel like as soon as I picked up the book it was everywhere. But up until that point, I had really never heard of it. But I was a twihard from the start. I wasn't one of those crazy people that had like Edward and Bella bed sheets and posters all over their room, but I just really loved those books. I went to midnight premieres of those movies like I did with Harry Potter. It was just such a great experience to move straight from one fandom into the next. And so then I kind of hit a snag with my reading. I feel like when I got into high school, for the most part, I was really involved with just so many other things like friends and music. I had started going to a youth group, and there were so many other things in my life that I wasn't really looking for new books to read, so I didn't read a lot of new books. I still read Harry Potter every single year. I cannot remember a single year of my life where I wasn't reading Harry Potter. This is exactly why I can't remember the amount of times I've read Harry Potter. It's somewhere in between 12 and 17. I really don't know where I'm at. But so I had my yearly rereads of Harry Potter. I normally did them in the summer, but in between I wasn't really picking up a lot of books, maybe like a random one here or there, like my boyfriend recommended it or my mom recommended it. But reading just was not a core part of my life for a couple of years. And then we get into my senior year of high school. Now in, I think it was September or October of 2014 or 2013, it was 2013, my boyfriend and I decided to go to the movies. And I don't know why, but I was so adamant about seeing We're the Millers. Like nothing in the world was going to stop me from seeing that movie that day. And funnily enough, I still haven't seen We're the Millers 2 years later. My boyfriend had suggested we go see this movie called The Mortal Instruments. Now, we had bonded over our love for fantasy before. We read the same book series at one point. So me being the good girlfriend and the slight pushover that I was like, you know what? We won't go see We're the Millers. Fine, we'll try this new movie, whatever. I've never heard of it. Didn't even watch a trailer, but we went. And oh my god, did my life change. I walked out of the theater in tears. I was like, how does this movie end like this? And my boyfriend's like, you know they're books, right? And I just remember this like intense hair flip, and I was like, what did you just say? I was so obsessed immediately. Like, think of how obsessed I am now. Like, I was that obsessed after seeing the movie. And so I went home. I was also reading the wiki pages for the books, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the library tomorrow and I'm gonna get the books. And that's exactly what I did. And so my thing with reading the Mortal Instruments, I'm gonna try and keep this really short because I could honestly talk about this experience forever. But so I started reading them from the library, and at this time it only had the first 5 books. So I read the first 5 books, and I can't even tell you how much I loved these books at the start, honestly. I reread them 4 times in a row. I would order all of the books from the library, and I would just sit there and I would just read them for like a week, and then I would order them again, and then I'd read them for a week, and then I'd order them again. Literally all of my free time in my first semester of my senior year was reading those books. And then we get to like the November, December-ish kind of point, and I'm like, you know what? I should probably read something else at this point, right? I can't just reread these books for the rest of my life. So I was thinking, I was like, what books do I want to read? What books do I know that I can read? So I was getting the Mortal Instruments box set for Christmas with the first 5 books. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna reread the Mortal Instruments to make it an even 5 before I had my own set. So I had 5 books that I wanted to read before Christmas. Then I was like, oh, you know, there's a prequel to the Mortal Instruments. Well, I gotta read that. That's gonna be good, right? So make that 8 books. And then I was thinking to myself, you know, I also haven't read The Hunger Games yet. For so long, for some reason, I thought I was like betraying the Harry Potter fandom by reading The Hunger Games, even though they're completely different series. I was so adamant about not joining this fandom that for years I didn't read The Hunger Games. I'm like, you know what? It's a really big series. Everyone loves it. I might as well try it. So I set up this mission to read 11 books by Christmas. So from December 1st to December 24th, I was going to try and read 11 books. And I did it! I started with The Hunger Games. I read the entire Hunger Games trilogy in like 3 or 4 days. After The Hunger Games, I read the Mortal Instruments again, and that was like my middle break. And then finally, I read the Infernal Devices trilogy. And I used to post pictures of it every day when I was like reading, or like I would finish a book or start a new book. You can go all the way back to my Instagram and you'll find pictures of like my holding these books, and they're all the library books. So I think that really there was like the start in my reading career, because it's one thing to just reread all of the books you love over and over and over again, but that was really my first significant moment where I set out and said, I want to try and read new books. And it was honestly some of the most fun I've ever had. Like, I will never forget that experience of reading those 11 books in 24 days. Because not only was it such an accomplishment, but I had so much fun doing it. And that is where my love for reading really started. And so I can't remember exactly what month it was, but around that time when I was rereading the Mortal Instruments over and over and over again, or that December when I decided to read some other books, I discovered BookTube, and so I was either reading or I was watching BookTube. And so already I had a ton of these amazing books that I wanted to try out. And so in January, I decided that I was going to start going to the library more. I was going to start picking out more books to read, and that were new books and not just rereads. And so then on January 27th of 2014, I started my own BookTube channel, and the rest is history. So basically, reading has been a big part of my life from the beginning. There were definitely points in my life where it wasn't as prominent, but you know, as soon as I read the Mortal Instruments, it just happened. Reading is just such an important part of my life at the moment, and I'm so thankful for all of the events, whether it be reading the Bailey School Kids in 2nd grade or, you know, reading 11 books in 24 days. So many things have happened that have made me into the reader I am today, and I'm so thankful for each and every one of those events, and I'm so happy I could share them with you guys. I'd really love to know how you guys got into reading. If you want to leave me like a full novel, I say go for it because I'm going to read it anyways, but just leave me a comment letting me know if there were any similarities or differences to our stories and what has made you into the reader you are today. That is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you soon for a new video. Bye!